So again, a warm hello this Monday morning, and quite happy to be here with you. The one of the marvelous, remarkable things that can happen in meditation is that we keep putting aside the preoccupations that obscure what is deep inside of us. And of course, in daily life, we often have many concerns, preoccupations that engage us, and sometimes we develop momentum and habit around the preoccupations, the concerns. And sometimes we have also our own inner dialogue and questioning and inner critique, inner doubts, inner even hostility sometimes towards ourselves, or fears that we somehow have stumbled into. And these are important to respect, but they also obscure what's deep inside within us. And this opportunity meditation to maybe put many of these things up on the shelf, or leave many of these things at the door of meditation. And then, just like you would come to a meditation hall and often you leave your shoes on the shelf outside. And so to leave things aside so that we can touch into something that's more fundamental, something more deeper, something that's often obscured or ignored or not recognized in daily life. Not to dismiss all those other things, but rather to reclaim what has been forgotten, to reclaim what is lost in the preoccupations we have. If you spend time in the woods in the winter storm, and it's maybe relatively safe to be there, but you have to be fully engaged in paying attention to where the path is, where the dangers are, and really maybe even take care of every step you take. And the wind is howling and the snow is falling, and so all our senses are tuned in to what's going on around us and finding our way. But we finally come to a cabin, a cozy small cabin, and when we go inside, and now we can take off our wet clothes and put on maybe some nice warm clothes and sit in front of a fire, and we've made it. We're safe now, and now all that concern with the world around us can be put to rest because now we're safe. And in that coziness and in that settledness, that perhaps some deeper wellspring of well-being or attention or even love can begin to arise, because all our preoccupations of walking in the snow have fallen away, and what we're left with is a simplicity and goodness and safety of just being here. And at the heart, deep down, if we can do this and really come down to what's fundamental in us, we will come to a place of care. Some people will call it compassion, some people will call it love. I like the word care because it's so broad and wide that encompasses all the care giving, care loving, caring attitudes, attentions that we have. And we can sit there not with the control tower thinking about caring for ourselves, but we can sit with a tenderness, a warmth, a sensitivity from inside that may be called something like care, something like love, that's there when all the other things are put aside. Not easy, but it's there. And maybe it's there in even the most simple ways. So to take a meditation posture And not a posture that you should take, that you're required to take, or that is just following some rule for meditation posture. But from the inside out, to assume a posture where you're caring for yourself, caring to sit in a way that's comfortable, helpful, supportive for you. So you can be both alert and begin to relax in meditation. And perhaps to close your eyes. So you begin a process of leaving the world around you at the door and find that cozy, warm cabin where you're safe inside of yourself, within yourself here. And of course there might be physical discomforts that you have and difficult feelings and emotions you might have when you turn in and feel them. And that's okay, but perhaps you can also discern that there's more than that. Maybe somewhere deep inside or in some forgotten corner, might there be something you could call love, tender care, kindness or goodwill, giving yourself the benefit of the doubt that there is goodness inside of you. There is sweetness or tenderness. And if there is, perhaps now to breathe with it. Breathe through it. Even if there is just a hint, or you imagine that it's there, it's enough. And then to breathe with that, breathe through it, as if breathing might be born out of that place within, and return to it. And then as part of this self-care, caring for yourself, as you exhale, to spend a few moments also relaxing the body, the tensions, the holdings, the muscles. But as you relax on the exhale, perhaps almost as if you're returning to a deep place inside of care, tenderness, love. If you find there's a lot of energy for thinking, perhaps you can dial down that energy, soften, quiet the thinking. or relax the pressure to think. In meditation, thinking is not so important. Though you might have simple thoughts, reminding you to reconnect to whatever is good inside. The tenderness, the love, the sense of caringness that you're capable of. In the way that you would care for yourself, relax and recover, sitting in a warm, safe cabin after being in the storm. Maybe now you can sit that way in meditation, sitting some deep place inside of care, of recovery. Of coziness, breathing in and breathing out. If we go deep inside and rest in our hearts, rest deep inside, love is most fundamental, and everything else is either a support for that or the thing that needs our love. Allow yourself to be supported in that care and kindness and goodness. Allow yourself to rest in it and trust it as fundamental, as the most important. And remember to always gaze upon all things that need love with love. Perhaps as you exhale, to let go of your thoughts, let go of ideas, and let go into some place within, quiet place, still place, where love radiates, shines or vibrates, a place of tenderness or warmth. And perhaps allow there to be feelings and very rudimentary thoughts of goodwill. Where the most fundamental thing is care or love, and everything else either supports that or is what receives the radiance of kindness from us. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, taking a few moments to feel whatever degree of calm or subtleness you might have, or perhaps coziness, quiet, settledness, or even safety that might allow you to trust your inner love, your inner care and kindness, the place that is maybe most soft and tender, when love is quiet, peaceful. And in the cozy and safety of meditation, where you don't have to say anything to anyone or do anything for anyone, or no one needs to know, turn your gaze outward and let your tender sympathy for all beings, or tender care, or simply your inner openness, be open to the world around you. Let there be an attitude of care, or love for all beings in all directions. Here, for a few moments, the luxury of being able to safely, from a distance, open your hearts in all directions. What is most fundamental is our love. And everything else either supports it or is the recipient for it. May your love be supported, and may you offer your love, your care, your kindness to everyone in the world who needs love, by sending out your wishes for well-being, for their happiness and welfare. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. And may all beings everywhere be free. So on this Monday, we start a new theme for the week, a theme that'll continue for a few weeks. And that will be what's called in Pali the Brahmaviharas, sometimes known as the divine abodes. And sometimes a different word is used to describe them, which is the immeasurables, the immeasurable abodes or dwellings. And so these are four qualities of kind of social attitudes, or four different flavors of caring for the world, caring for ourselves. And so a background for these, in ancient India, records we have, and we don't know what else was going on, but the earliest records we have that survive in writing of the religions of ancient India began with the idea that there are gods, and the gods influence the events of the world, and that we need to make sacrifices and offerings to the gods so they'll treat us favorably, and then crops will grow, and the cows will flourish, and whatever else needed, to whatever we wanted. Over time, in a couple of centuries maybe before the Buddha, there became this idea that the external world, the cosmos, the divine world, the world of the gods, was to be found inside of oneself. That there was an internalization of where the very thing that's found outside is also found within. And so then there was an internalization of religious practice, looking inward. And that's maybe where meditation began. And the Buddha was part of this internalization movement of ancient India. And one way we see it is with this, that the divine, which the earlier tradition was looking for within oneself, the divine eventually became coalesced in some areas of India around the idea of a divinity, a kind of prime, main God named Brahma. And then the Buddha, rather than focusing externally on this concept of a divinity or a God, he was in this internalization movement, pointed out that we can experience in ourselves the attitudes, the qualities, the abidings, the life of this Brahma in ourselves. And we can dwell like Brahma, we could be like this great God if we dwelled in the 4 Brahmaviharas. And vihara means dwellings or abodes, so the 4 abodes of Brahma. And the dwellings where Brahma lives is in loving kindness, goodwill, in compassion, in appreciative joy, and a certain kind of social attitude called equanimity. And we'll talk about that. So these are fairly well known in our Vipassana scene. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha. And so it's quite a thing, quite a movement, this ancient Indian movement of internalizing or finding within oneself the qualities of the divine. And so some people will translate Brahmaviharas rather than the abidings of the god Brahma, they'll call it in English the divine abodes. And this idea that it's, and that's quite I think a powerful word in English to call something divine, and to discover it inside oneself, that's where it can be found. In the lore of Buddhism, or in the iconography of Buddhism, you'll find these statues of Brahma, and the statues have 4 faces, and pointing in the 4 different directions. So there's, and these 4 faces, each of them represent one of these Brahmaviharas. So the one in the front, looking out in the world, is that of goodwill and kindness. To the right, I believe, is compassion. To the back is appreciative joy, and to the left is equanimity. And so the 4 faces of Brahma. So in a way, this represents these are the 4 faces that we can bring to the world, depending on the circumstances at the time. That's the way we can gaze and look upon the world. But we might also think of this idea that these are kind of the face, the way we look at the world, that the body of Brahma, deep inside of Brahma, there is something deeper than loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. and something which animates us into action. And that is the word that I've talked about last spring called anukampa, and I translate it as care, the basic caring for the world, caring for others, a kind of love, tender care, that is the seed or the source for these other four. And this is what if we drop really deep inside, get really quiet and still and calm and relaxed, that there is a kind of sensitivity, a vibration, a warmth, a glow, a tenderness that is not quite compassion, not quite loving kindness, not quite appreciative joy or equanimity, but it has qualities that are related to all of those, or which is quieter and tender and almost like doesn't want a label or a word. It's not quite each of those, but are often seen as love because we have no other maybe English word for it. But it could also be experienced differently. It could even be a sense of coziness, but this deeper sense of care. And this is one of the things that as we meditate and get quieter and quieter and put things on the shelf, leave things at the door, and really allow ourselves to settle and this movement, internalization movement, to really when we really get most quiet and not concerned with our thoughts anymore about what's happening during the day or relationship to other people or concerns about the future, concerns about the past, or being lost in fantasy, but really get settled. It's as if there's a natural capacity there, our natural capacity to care, which a wonderful image for this that I came across some weeks ago. I was hiking up in the hills nearby at a place, at a nature preserve, and there's some wide grasslands and oak woodlands and things in this preserve. And there's a good number of deer that live there. And the rules of the preserve is everyone's supposed to walk on the trails only. And the deer, of course, can walk anywhere. And over these decades of this preserve, these deer that are there are quite used to the people. And they must have understood well that people stay on the trails. And so they come relatively close to they're kind of just grazing and living there and mostly feeling pretty safe, I think, and comfortable. And last time I was there, I saw one deer with kind of grooming with its teeth, kind of cleaning the neck of another deer. And I realized, wait a minute, deer can lick themselves, some parts of their body, but they can't really clean their necks. And like cats, they can't like cats come up and kind of rub the top of their heads and all this. And so if they want to clean their necks or the tops of their heads or something, they have to do it for each other. And this idea of these mammals, our fellow mammals, the deer, that kind of, they're kind of maybe herd animals that care for each other in different ways. That the basic caring and cleaning and tending is such a basic human, maybe even mammalian activity that is almost like instinct inside of us. I associate very much with in my image, kind of a mother or parent taking care of a very young child, a little baby, and the tenderness and care and gentleness in which and dedication, devotion, love that's there for caring for something that's so vulnerable and needs our attention. And so this innate capacity that sometimes is covered over, sometimes is very unique, experienced very uniquely for each person, very different from other people. So I like the word care. And care, depending on the circumstance, manifests as or morphs into goodwill, compassion, appreciative joy, or equanimity. And so it's pretty fundamental care, and there's a lot that can support that. To be supported by inner stability, supported by mindfulness and awareness, to be supported by the capacity to recognize what it is that takes us away from that, what we get caught up in, and what kind of disconnects us in a way from this deeper place of subtleness and sensitivity and openness, and even a place of deep safety inside that we discover in meditation, that no matter what someone says or even does to us, we can have discovered there's a place that is not harmed by anything. It's a place of deep, deep safety that is kind of coterminous or very connected to this deep place of warmth, of care, of tenderness. And so goodwill, metta, is the feeling of wanting people to be happy and how we meet the happiness of the world. That compassion is how we meet the unhappiness of the world, the suffering of the world, wishing that suffering to go away and to empathize and sympathize in the suffering. Appreciative joy is to celebrate the good fortune that people have. And equanimity is the feeling of love when we can't really do anything, but people have, their fortune is not so good sometimes, and unfortunate things happen, and we can care for them, we can love them, but there's also a degree of kind of not getting upset or agitated, reactive to the misfortune of the world, but having this beautiful love, care, supported and protected with a certain kind of equanimity or balance, non-reactivity. So that's going to be the topic over this next period of time, and for the rest of this week we'll talk more about loving kindness and metta. And I hope that as we do this series that you really think of it as topics as pointing to kind of getting the home base or the supportive base for mindfulness practice itself, for meditation. So, so thank you. And then one announcement I have, that now that the coronavirus has become, they call it a surge, and many places now there's stay-at-home orders. Here in California, 85% of the population has stay-at-home orders, and people are staying at home, and even more than they have been. I wanted to know what we could do here at IMC to support people in that. And so this week I am teaching a retreat, an online retreat, and at 4 p.m. in California time, on today and Wednesday and Friday, I'm giving a Dharma talk. It's a retreat talk, so it is a little different, maybe flavor than weekly talks. But I will do that. Well, I'll broadcast those talks here on the YouTube channel live. So if you're sheltered at home and would like to have a little more contact with the Dharma, you're welcome to join us at California time at 4 p.m. And if you want to be supported a little more by the retreat that we're doing, and I think there's about 140 people on the retreat, so it's a lot of people. You might want to think about meditating on your own for the half an hour or so before the 4 o'clock Dharma talk, if you want to come to it. So for those of you who will come, I look forward to seeing you this afternoon, or being with you this afternoon, and look forward to coming back here tomorrow morning. Thank you.